Hello again, guys, and I've left La Junta in Coihaique, on the way to Coihaique, Chile. Coihaique, I can't pronounce it. I can't roll my R's or anything like that, or L's or whatever. But today was pretty miserable weather most of the way. Cleared up a bit towards the end of the trip, but as you can see, the mountains are just spectacular. Lots of waterfalls. Obviously coming to the end of summer here, and so it's pretty cold. And with the rain, it got pretty miserable for a while there, especially when I got off road. There's a couple of major waterfalls that I really didn't get to see much because of the cloud cover and the rain, but magnificent ride. The roads are really good. It's really strange though. You see there's a bit of traffic on the road, okay? And then you go off-road and you just don't see any traffic, and you wonder where do all these cars just come from? You know, it's really strange. Maybe they're just going between towns, most of them. But I think I saw one or two cars the whole time off-road, and there's probably about 2 or 3 hours of off-roading. It's pretty slippery. My tyres, the Heidenau's K60 Scout, they just don't like a hard surface with the width of my tyres, because mine's the maximum width tyre, and it's just basically a flat part down the middle of the back. So you actually get more grip on a bit of a lean than you do just riding straight, which is a bit strange. Just rivers everywhere. Basically, I followed the river pretty much all the way along, and it opened up into lakes like that. It was quite spectacular. You can just imagine it on a sunny day. It'd be just amazing. But I stuck it around 20 to 30 mile an hour most of the way, 40 mile an hour in some parts where you got a nice clean run. But there was a lot of twists and turns, and then there was quite a big climb. Well, it felt like a big climb up a mountain. It was just basically a whole bunch of hairpins going up a dirt mountain. It was pretty slippery around the corners, but it was reasonably, it was a bit shaky, but reasonably well, And as you can see, these roads here, these are all eventually going to be paved. You can see they're even working on them now. They've got, you'll see some peg markers everywhere and stuff like that. So it's not going to be long before it's fully paved, probably all the way to Coihaique, and then they'll just keep going apparently. The whole goal is to pave all the way down, because it's a big tourist area. They figure the more people that can get there, the better for tourism, which is true, I suppose, but it'll just ruin it a little bit, I think. But that's from a selfish point of view. But it was a spectacular day's ride. I mean, I loved it so much. I could just keep going and going, especially just having hardly any vehicles around. The whole journey off-road, it's pretty spectacular, and I could just only imagine how beautiful it would be on a sunny day. And I got plenty of sunny days ahead of me, so I wasn't that concerned. It would have been nice, my first couple of days in Patagonia to actually, I mean, some people don't say this is Patagonia, but for all intents and purposes it is. I didn't, at the end of the trip, towards the end of the trip, I met a couple of other riders that were just from Chile, just some adventure riders just going for a weekend or about 3-day trip. They were really cool. One of the guys was from Mexico as well. There was about 3 or 4 of them. They were really nice. But it was pretty cold, and a couple of the landmark places like the Virgin Falls and all that, it wasn't worth me going because it was just pouring at that stage with rain. And I had it was about a 20-mile route off-road, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to see anything, so I'll just keep going. And that happened a couple of times on the last leg of this trip, where everyone said how spectacular it was, but it was just pouring with rain, so I couldn't see a half a kilometre in front of me, let alone any of the mountains, But I had plenty of beautiful sunny days too, so you got to take the good with the bad. But it was a really, really good day's ride, and basically, I mean, anyone who's doing this journey is always just thinking about Ushuaia, and Ushuaia, before you get to Ushuaia is all the really cool stuff, all the big massive mountains and the glaciers and all that sort of stuff. Ushuaia is more of a destination. It's got some cool mountains as well surrounding the city, but it's more of a destination than actually a place that's got amazing stuff. One of the other guys, he went all the way, got a ferry, got a boat all the way to parts of Antarctica, which was pretty amazing for him to do that. He's had the trip of a lifetime, that guy. He actually went from Buenos Aires. He then went to South Africa, rode through parts of Africa, and then went into Europe, and now I think he's in Switzerland now. Yeah, I mean, you can only dream of doing. He's taking a year, a bit more than a year, and just travelling. He's going to Australia as well. So pretty amazing stuff. So a bit of off-roading, and then you had some road, and then you went off-road again, and it was strange because I saw traffic again on this road, and then I went off-road again, and then there was no traffic. So but it was a really cool day's riding. So basically, where I was heading there from, I was going to base myself in Coyhaique for I think I was only going to be there for one night, and then head from there to Chile Chico. So I was going to have a couple more ride days, and basically from around Chile Chico you cross into Argentina for the first time. And there's some pretty tough riding from there. You can keep going down Ruta 7 and go to O'Higgins, but there's no road through. There's no road that gets you back. So you could theoretically go down to O'Higgins, but then you'd have to turn back. I was never quite sure whether anyone tried to go through, but I don't think you can. I think it's basically you go from Chile Chico and you can go all the way down to O'Higgins, and then you go back up. Would have been a pretty exciting ride, but for time constraints, I just didn't have that extra 3 or 4 days to go down and then come back again. It probably would have been about another extra week. But it's a shame you can't cross through from O'Higgins into Argentina. That would have been pretty amazing. There's just no roads there. There's only a couple of roads to get you all the way down south too. So you basically, you've just got to make smart decisions. If you've got the time, I can't remember if there was anyone on our trip that actually went to O'Higgins. I don't think there was. But yeah, so basically my route now was basically to spend a couple of more days in the southwestern part of Chile, and then cross over into Argentina, and then follow Route 40 down, and then spend a few nights in El Calafate to go to all the really cool glaciers and mountains there, and then basically Torres del Paine, and then from there basically head right down into Ushuaia. So it was just all about now just enjoying myself and just enjoying the riding days. As you can see, some workmen ahead, and yeah, just taking it all in and just taking my time all the way down south, and you come this far, you just want to keep riding. Like once, you know, after about a month of riding, once you get into the routine, you know, you spend 2 days off the bike, and you just all you're thinking about is getting back on the bike again. You know, this was pretty tough here. Actually, I went past. I don't know if we show it, but I went past a couple of bike rides. This was pretty steep all the way up, and there was a couple of people on bicycles. That would have been a tough ride up there. It doesn't look steep, but it is. And just keep climbing up. This went for about probably 10 miles of this, and then basically once I got down into the valley, I was back on the tarmac again. But it was pretty slippery, especially around the corners. Just for some reason, it always gets dug up around the corners, and you know, you get a lot more slippy than normal. But yeah, so this whole journey, I'd sort of thought the weather was going to be a lot nicer, so I was going to actually spend the whole day and just stop at a whole heap of places. I've mapped out a whole heap of places along the way. Okay, just get around the corner, slide a little bit out. And yeah, I had about 3 or 4 stops along the way. Where I was gonna have lunch, but all the places I wanted to stop was just raining there the whole time, so it wasn't much point in stopping. And I was getting pretty cold actually too. I'd worn the REI thermals, and this is the last time I'd wear them. They just weren't performing. The Helly Hansen ones, which were a lot lighter, but just gave a lot more warmth and protection. But I basically spent about I think I only did about 200 to 300 kilometres a day. That's a pretty wide turn, that one. 200, 300 kilometres, about 300 kilometres maybe for the day, but it still took me 7 or 8 hours to do. You know, I had a few stops along the way. I stopped along a river at one point, and there were some people camping, and they basically had to move their campsite because the river was coming up. It's pretty funny. And then had a couple of little stops along the way to get some nice little shots. You'll see up in a minute I have where there was just raging waterfalls, but because of the cloud cover, you couldn't really see much. So unfortunately, this is it here. I have a little bit of add my own little waterfall to this one. Sped up. Yeah, so there was quite a lot of waterfalls there. It was pretty spectacular, but couldn't really see much because of the cloud cover. I waited there for about 20 minutes, hoping the clouds would lift, but it didn't. So yeah, and like accommodation now, once you get down here, like some of the, you know, a 3 or 4 star hotel is, you know, during this time of year, it's like, you know, $150, $200. It's ridiculously expensive for what you get, but there's not a huge amount of choices. As you can see again, now there's cars everywhere, you know. Yeah, so really it's best to, like, I just kept going to cabanas. This one night I stayed in the city only because I was just filthy dirty and needed to wash my gear, so I actually stayed in the hotel, but it was pretty much cabanas all the way down from there, or I had one night of camping. But you know, if I didn't have to work, I would have just loved to have camped a hell of a lot more, you know. You can see my Garmin GPS device there, completely and utterly useless. And I paid for the maps down south for all this area, but they, you know, it's like you're always like 100 metres off, 200 metres, 400 metres, a mile off the road. This is one of the rivers I stopped at. There's some people camping somewhere near here, I think, on the river, but they were moving because the river was really rocketing along. It was pretty wet. Just a little note I just noticed on my bike there. You really got to invest in some really good cables for charging your phone and stuff like that. You probably want to take about 4 or 5 of each one if they're going to be external cables, like you're going to be running them from your cigarette lighter on your motorbike, because you're moving them around all the time and they will wear out. And the thing is, you really want high speed. Wipro make really good ones, and there's a couple of ones you just got to do a look up online for the cables, because I probably went through 3 or 4 cables the whole way where the charge just started slowing down. So what you want is the charge from your outlet on your bike. You want it to be, while you've got the GPS running and all that on your phone, you want it to be keeping up, or if not charging more. I had a little plug, a little fast charging plug, because I've got the Samsung Galaxies, so they work really well with the fast charging plug that you put into the bike. I was always at 100% with the charge. I used a different one earlier on that was from Ram Mounts. It was just it wasn't keeping up the charge. So on my mobile phone, on the bike, I had my Google Maps. In the cities, I used the Waze. Google Maps for everywhere else. The only issue with Google Maps is that in most of the cities in South America, it doesn't know the one-way streets, which can get you a little. The bigger cities fine, but the smaller cities, no. And so that's when Waze comes in handy. And I also was running the Rever app, R-E-V-E-R, and that basically tracks every motorbike ride. You'll see them on my blog posts. It tracks them. You can add photos to your trip. You just upload the photos. As long as you've got the GPS, the location on the photos, it will actually automatically put the photos on the map from where you travelled. I've still got a fair bit of work to do on those, but it's another stopping point. Off the beaten track. It was pretty miserable there. It's the same river as before. But yeah, make sure. To get really good charging cables, there's only, instead of paying $4 for 15 for 5 of them, you might be paying like $10 or $12 for 4 or 5, and it's just worth that investment. Just make sure that it's high, the rating is really good, and then check the reviews, say on Amazon, on what people think of them, because it does make a huge difference. But as I said, I went through quite a few of them, because after a while they just wear and they're just not charging anymore. And if you're going to get a phone, get a waterproof phone. I know the iPhones now are water resistant, same as the Samsungs, but it makes a huge difference. The only issue, you've got to have the phone on an angle so that the water doesn't sit on it, because otherwise it starts making button motions, which is just ridiculous. So it actually starts pressing buttons on your phone without you knowing. So you've got to have the phone on a certain angle so the water washes off. Have a little protective cover on it. Give it a good polish. Make sure there's no dirt or anything on the face of your phone, because otherwise the water will sit there. But worked perfectly. The Rever app is an app that you can use, and you can actually set it so when you stop, you can press a button to pause or have a waypoint. I just left it running. Now I think it's got an auto stop, so it knows when you're stopped for a period of time, and it will actually pause the trip from there, which is a lot better, because some of my trips say that I've ridden for 12 hours and 600 kilometres, or 400 miles in 12 hours, 300 miles in 12 hours. 500 kilometres. Obviously you're not riding at that, and it gives you all this indication of your average speed, your top speed, elevation, all that sort of stuff. But if you're not pausing it, it sort of makes your average speed like 30, 40, 50 kilometres an hour, 40, 30 mile an hour, when you're obviously going a lot faster. But the reason I didn't do it, because a couple of times that I tried it, I forgot all about it and didn't reset it. And I think now the app automatically knows, so you don't have to do that, which is a lot better. Because if you're stopping once every 2 hours for 20 minutes on a 10-hour trip, that's an hour and 20 minutes, you know. That's what, 100 minutes, an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4 of stoppages. And especially I used to stop for 20 minutes, and then if I had lunch, it might be a 40-45 minute stop if I had lunch. As you got further south, the food got harder and harder to get good street food, like all through Central America and Mexico and Guatemala and Peru and all these countries. There was plenty of street food, but as the countries get more wealthy, I suppose you could say, there's just not as much of it. And another problem I had was just that all the fast food, like all the local shops and all that, was just all pastry, like all empanadas and all that sort of stuff, which is delicious, but they're not really good for your weight. I mean, I lost about 10 kilos through Central and America, Mexico and Central America, and then I put it all back on again as I got further down south. And because it's cold, I suppose you just want to have hot food, but if you can help it, try to get, and even a lot of the time you can't because you've stopped in a village and the only thing they have is that. But if you can take a little bit longer and, you know, time where you're going to go, you can probably get some really good, I mean, all the soups were all amazing throughout all the country. Yeah, so I mean, I really love the River app. You know, the Garmin device, I just don't know why they bother. You know, they have their own. I know a lot of bikers really like it, but there's just so much time setting up with that, and it just doesn't know so many places. It doesn't know so many roads, and it just gets really frustrating. Well, you know, Google, halfway through my trip, the Android was released. Android Auto was released for the phone, and that was really good, you know, because you can play the music, you can listen to tunes, you can do all of that stuff. And Garmin, they make really good solid devices, so I don't know why they just don't make an Android Auto version, just keep making great devices. You know, I'd continue buying them. But if they're going to have their own mapping system, you know, use the Android and overlay something, overlay all the, because the one thing it was good for was gas stations. Not that it knew whether the gas station had any gas or not, but it knew where most of the gas stations were, which is really handy. Well, Google Maps on its own doesn't, the Waze does. There's a lot of, throughout, as you go south, there's a lot of people on bicycles. Going nowhere slow. I just don't know how they do it. Especially when you get up to some of the areas where you've got massive climbs and stuff like that. So here I've got about 30 miles to go to Coihaique, however you want to pronounce it, Coihaique. Yeah, it's a pretty nice town actually. I only spent one night there. I think I only spent one night, I'm pretty sure I did. And then it was heading down towards Chile Chico, which is on the border of Chile and Mexico. And then Ruta 40 begins, which was pretty tough, I've got to say. It was a lot of it was paved, and a lot of it wasn't as well, and it was pretty tough riding. A few really long, hard days, especially because the roads are so wide, and there's just crushed rock everywhere, and it gets pretty annoying after a while. But yeah, I had a couple of really great days in front of me, and probably one of the best days riding is coming up in a couple of days, and just absolutely spectacular. I had beautiful weather, which made a huge difference. But today, you know, like all these sort of days are great days. I love these type of roads, like the thinner roads, the well paved, you know, and a little bit of a mix of on and off road. You don't really have too many choices down here unless there's little villages to the side where you can go up dirt roads and that, but they don't connect to anything, so you're pretty much stuck on the Ruta 7 road, which is pretty cool, to be honest. You know, it's not all paved. There's a lot of it that's not paved, but it's still a pretty cool cool track. There's some more waterfalls there. Actually, I think I actually rode back there. Some ranches along the way, but it was it's just so much fun riding these roads, you know, especially when you come from Miami where there's basically hardly any turns whatsoever. You know, and on the flats here it's pretty straight, but once you get towards the mountains you start climbing a little bit and you get not a lot of nice, really nice turns. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed some little shots from Patagonia, and as much as I enjoyed riding it. And just like always, if you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I get a chance. And just finishing off with a couple of nice little shots. This is Coihaique. This is the town. It's not a big town, but it's a nice little town along the river. Okay guys, questions or comments below. We'll chat again next time.